Hello, Facebook Live. It's Marilyn Devonish here from transformationstm.com. And I want to talk to you a bit today about Huna energy, because I have had some questions about how it works. Some of the examples, people saying, well, can you give me an example of how it works? I'm going to do that here today. And also talk to you a little bit about the energy experiment I'm doing this weekend, which I'm sure will be huge amounts of fun as well. And with that, we're going to be playing with the Huna symbols. And so for me, my first dipping the toe in the water for Huna was back in the year 2000. So at this point, 18 years have elapsed since that time. And for me, it was an amazing and profound experience in terms of the level of change and transformation that I experienced, even though the person seemingly didn't do anything. All they did was ask me a couple of questions and then just carried on teaching a class. But within about an hour, I felt just profoundly different about the whole situation. And within, I think it was probably 10, 12 hours, the person who was involved in that scenario was like a completely different person, and they've been different ever since. So that was just like crazy cool. And that's kind of course, I now know what he was doing, because the way I describe it to my clients is that there's a bells and whistles version of Huna, which is, if you guys for you guys who joined me this week for the Angel Tarot and Huna Big Clearing Call, I did the bells and whistles version. And then there's a quiet, silent version of Huna, which is basically an energy transmission while you're just in conversation with someone. And so a lot of the time, what I'm doing with my clients, even when they think I'm just chatting, the reason why after even a couple of minutes they go, what was I talking about again? Or wow, I just feel so different, I feel better, or they can't even remember what the issue was. It's because of the silent version. And so I thought what I'd do, just so you can get your head around it, because I know it's an interesting one. And one of the reasons why people are asking is because what I'm going to be doing is, let's see if I can find it. I think this is the thing that people have been reacting to. That one there. I'm going to be doing some remote Huna stuff for people who can't make the Huna workshop at the weekend. I've also given the option of joining us remotely, and so I'm just going to explain a little bit about how that's going to go. But I think most importantly, I'm going to give you some examples about how it has worked in the past. Oh, hello, Kay. Thank you for joining me. And so that's what we're going to start with. And I think if I kind of start with this one here, because this was probably back in 2004, 2003, 2004, something like that. And it was my very first experience of knowing absolutely 100% without question that this weird and crazy stuff works. And this was, I had a friend who had phoned up one night. I was sitting at my desk. She said she was feeling suicidal, was going to kill herself, and was just phoning some of her friends to say goodbye and to thank you for being such a good friend, And I was right in the middle of writing a proposal, because those are in the days where I was doing a lot of the management consultancy stuff, and I worked in central and local government, and so you don't just rock up for that work. It might have changed now, but you have to sit and write proposals. So I'm right in the thick of writing a proposal. I've got a deadline coming up, and I said to her, look, you know what? I says, can you hold off killing yourself for tonight? And if you're up for it, I'll send you some Huna healing tonight. She's like, okay then. And so hang up the phone. I thought, right, I'll do that in a bit. So I'm working on this proposal till quite late, went upstairs, and I just fell asleep. And I woke up probably around 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, oh my God, I didn't send the Huna. So I'm sitting in bed in the dark, and I'm sort of doing it semi-quietly. I'm sure my neighbor couldn't hear, but I'm doing it semi-quietly. So I'm like, and I'm just holding a vision of her in my mind, and I do the Huna. I go back to sleep. Next morning, I come down to my desk. I'm looking at my emails, and there's an email from her. I'm saying, oh, good, she's still alive then. And I read the email. I was just like, whoa, are you kidding me? Because she says that, she says, oh, really sorry about last night. I had too much to drink. I haven't been sleeping well for the last couple of weeks. I haven't been eating. I've been really depressed about the breakup of this relationship. So I'm kind of embarrassed. Yeah, she said, but anyway, the funniest thing happened last night. She said, and this is the point where you tell me that I'm crazy. She then goes on to describe how she suddenly felt in the middle of the night at the same time I was sending the Huna. Now let's keep in mind, she's drunk, number one, probably didn't even half remember what I said I was going to do. And I didn't tell her, I just said send some Huna. So I wasn't specific. I never am with my clients. They get too into it intellectually. And she had no idea what time I was going to be doing it. But at the time I was sending the Huna, she simultaneously at home suddenly felt calm, peaceful, and relaxed. And those were the exact symbols that I had sent over to her. And so she's saying, you're not going to believe this, and this is the point where you tell me I'm crazy. Then she described this scenario. She says, it's the best night's sleep I've had in weeks. I'm reading, I'm like, oh my God. So I then message her back going, you're not going to believe this. And I then relay this whole story to her. And that was my first indication. And I mean, I've always known that energy travels. I've always known that it transcends our thoughts about barriers and walls and distances and all the rest of it. I knew it. You know, when you know something and you know intellect and you kind of believe it as well, but you haven't actually had it presented back to you in such a way that makes you go, whoa. It was one of those defining moments. I was like, oh my God, that's really interesting. And so that's where it really started for me with the remote Huna. And I've had some, you know, because people are often with relationships, difficult situations, challenges at work, normally there's another person involved. Now, the thing I always say to my clients is I'm working with you. I don't know the other person. I'm not getting into the other person's business. It's none of my business. I can't be meshing with their energy field. For me, that's unecological. However, I'm going to work with you in the aspects of them that you hold inside of you. That's the way I describe it to my clients. And I think this one, was a kind of a really, really interesting one. Let me find this one for you. So this was one of those, again, my client almost couldn't believe it, but could believe it. And in a nutshell, the story is he'd been having altercations and stand-up rows with a particular neighbor who had left a rusty car partly blocking his driveway, which meant that when he has visitors or clients coming around, they sort of had to park in front of the neighbor's driveway. The neighbor would then come out and start an altercation, shouting and all the rest of it. My client would have to come out and get involved. It was just hugely stressful. And that car had been sat beside my clients, I think it was something like 6 or 7 months, more than half a year. So he's had one of these altercations. He pulls his car over. He phones me up and he says, oh God, it's all kicked off again. I really can't take much more of this. And I said, okay, let's do some Huna clearing. We did some what you would call ho'oponopono, not the I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. But there's a kind of a full-on version of that. So I did a version of that with him. Now, bear in mind, he's sitting on the side of a motorway somewhere. So we do this process, make sure he's all good to go. Off he goes, drives off. The next day, his wife opens the front door. She calls him out. She calls him out and she says, look at this. He stands there. The car, which had been there permanently, constantly, every single day, month in, month out, gone. She looked at him because obviously he told her that he'd spoken to Marilyn, done an impromptu, you know, we only did like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, something like that. And so she looked at him and she says, is Marilyn a white witch? Because she couldn't believe what had happened, because, you know, within 24 hours of cutting the ties and connections between my client and this person, car's gone. Client then says to me in a joking way, well, you know, love living on this street. What would make it amazing if this person were to move? Now, a couple of months later, I'm doing a joint session with a friend of mine. We're at his mansion, and my client's there, and he says, "Oh, you're not going to believe it." I went, "Let me guess, your guy's put his house up for sale." He went, "Yeah." So that's how crazy cool it. I remember there was one with a woman who came. I'd done a talk. I did it for the NLP Richmond group. I'd done a talk. About goal setting, about, you know, why people sabotage themselves, how to release the blockages around that, yada yada yada, and also mentioned a bit of Huna, a bit of access consciousness as being really good ways to clear energy. So one of the people who was at that talk, she booked a coaching session, just did an hour. She walked in, I said, what do you want to work on? She said, I hate my job, I hate my boss, I hate my life. And I'm like, so not much then. So we do this session. And, you know, again, I thought, God, I've only got an hour. What am I going to do with that time? Let's do some ho'oponopono. Let's do some energy clearing of her. Let's clear the representation of her boss that she holds inside of her, etc., etc. A a week or so later, my phone rings. She says her name. Now, because I'd only met her the once, I hadn't really clocked the name at first. And I said, who? She said, oh, I did a session with you a little. And I went, oh, yeah, how's it going? She says, you're not going to believe this, which is what my clients always say. I went, oh, really? What happened? She says, after I saw you, I went into work. Now, bear in mind, her boss and her didn't get on. Her boss was always picking on her. And she found out that even though she'd been there several years, she was being paid a lot less than even some of the new interns. And her boss and her never had social conversations. She goes into work after we do the session. Her boss is all chatty, and they had a talk about the weekend. So now she's confused, because when it first happened to me, I went back into my class after I'd been the subject of the Huna, and I said, I think the person you worked on has been abducted by aliens, because that was the most reasonable explanation I could come up with to describe the change in their personality. So she's confused. She's like, is that the same boss? Anyway, she's kind of fine. So they have this conversation, and she's still kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. She then gets called into the office. She went, oh, here we go. So she goes into the office, sits down. They said, we've been reviewing your files, and we've realized you're being underpaid. So, you know, starting from now, you'll be getting a pay rise. And just keep in mind, it wasn't performance review time. It wasn't annual appraisal time. It wasn't anything time. And if you've ever worked for an organization, you know that even when it comes to appraisal, sometimes you have to fight tooth and nail to get a pay rise, even if you've done an outstanding job. It wasn't time for any of that. And out of the blue, they reviewed her files, gave her a pay rise. And so she phones up and she's like, I can't even explain what's happened. I went, it's fine, it's cool. I expect those kind of crazy things. And so, but you know, you could hear the stunned tone of voice often, because my clients are like, did that really just happen? They almost can't believe it. So we've had some really fantastic ones. And I remember, and the next one I'm gonna talk to you about, and he's given me permission to use his name, is a really interesting one, because this has happened several times now. Lovely friend of mine called Lack Loy. I'd worked with one of his friends. I didn't really know they had a connection particularly. And my friend had been talking about the miraculous things that have happened since we did a Huna session. And we just done it by phone. So Lack phones me up. He says, I've been out of contract for 9 months. Things are getting a bit tight now. And he said, you know, I've had some opportunities or things that should have happened just at the last minute. It just all falls apart. And so I'm getting to the end of my buffer period now. I really need to get back to work. And he says, you work with a friend of mine. He told me about the Huna. It sounds amazing. Can we do a session? So we just basically did it there and then on the phone. But I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour. Some of it, you know, you'll know if you've worked with me, we have a little bit of a chat. So I can just hear how you represent the world to yourself. And then we do the Huna. And as I said, even when we're chatting, you think I'm chatting. The transmission is going on. But then for my clients' amusement, let's put it that way, because, you know, to finish a session, go, she just talked to me, she didn't do anything. People almost feel a little bit shortchanged. And so we did the bells and whistles version as well. So I did a bit, and if you haven't heard the bells and whistles version, it looks and sounds like, because the premise is you draw the symbols on the breath, you deliver the symbols on the breath. So we do a bit of bells and whistles, hang up the phone. Next day, get a phone call. Hey Marilyn, it's Lack. Hi Lack, how are you? You're not going to believe this. Okay, go for it. He's going to say, he's like, a contract which was dead in the water, just come out of nowhere, and they want me to start tomorrow. And because he'd been out of work for 9 months, he actually said to them, I think it was like the Wednesday or the Thursday they got in touch. It might have been the Wednesday, because I think it was the Thursday, because I went to the Yes group and Lack was there. And so we did about 5 minutes of in-person Huna as well. So it must have been they got in touch on the Thursday, but they said to him, can you start tomorrow? And he's like, oh, I'm going to need a couple of days to get myself together. Is it okay if I start on Monday? And when I met him at a dinner a couple of years later, people don't even realize they're doing it. I just giggled to myself. It's like, oh man, it's so busy. And I'm like, wow. If they remember where they were when we started, where they had nothing going on, and it happens all the time with my clients, oh, you know, want to shift some stuff, there's nothing happening, it's all very, and then we do the work, a couple of years later, they're still busy, and they're not complaining about it in a negative way, but it's just that, oh man, so much happening, so much on, so many clients, so much work. It's just really interesting. So, you know, had a great chat, but I'd said to Lack, can I share your story? And he said, oh God, yeah, please, you know, if it helps other people to understand understand the power and the magic of this stuff, feel free to share. So that one's really interesting. And I had another of my clients who, again, had been out of contract for 9 months. There's something weird going on with that. And we did some Huna. She went from zero interest. She was getting a few interviews, but a lot of the time wasn't even making it to interview stage. And if she wasn't getting the job, was just being pipped to the post. We did the Huna, and she was offered not one job, but 2. She then messages me back going, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And I was like, what's happened? I've got to choose. So now the problem is not, I can't get any work, I can't get any contracts. The problem is, oh my God, I've got to choose. And those of you who are at the membership group workshop 2 weeks ago, you would, I won't say her name, but you would have heard her talking about the fact that, again, and that's where the, you know, when I'm doing the power of 4 thing, she done a soul plan reading with me. We've done a future life progression. We've done the Huna and access consciousness clearing, and all that kind of, you know, stuff, and angel tarot. So we've done these 4 modalities, and apparently, because I'm not always thinking about what I'm saying, but apparently I had said to her during that process that you will be in a position where they want you to start now, because again, she'd been out of work for almost a year. So she's telling everyone at the workshop on Saturday, it's a free workshop that I run every year for people in my membership group. And she's telling them all, she said, Marilyn, it happened exactly as you said it. She went for an interview, got offered not 1 job, but 2 on the same day. And they were both fighting over her. And they both wanted her to start now. And so it's just been crazy cool stuff. So I can't really tell you exactly how it happens in terms of, well, then this happens and the energies, but you know, the symbols of, there are specific symbols for the 5 elements. So there's an element of that. So for those of you who are joining me remotely on Saturday, I've sent you an email asking what is it, and I'll put that up at the end so you can just have a look at it if you're coming and you haven't responded yet. But I've asked you, what is it you most want? Because what I'm going to do, we're going to do some experiment, we're going to do a bit of experimenting with the Huna energy. So their symbols are quite specific in what they do, but the net result is that, that when people have a sense of intention and they clear the stuff that stands in the way, miraculous, crazy cool things happen, both for them in terms of their own physical health and well-being, like, and actually just to put your minds at rest with regards to the person I was talking about who was suicidal, she is still alive and well and very happy. I interact with her almost, you know, very often. She's in one of my groups, and so it's all good. And so you know, when I think back to that, because I've been, you know, just running through as I'm prepping for the workshop, just running through some of the things that have happened, some of the examples. And it's different for everyone, but there is definitely a theme and a pattern that oftentimes something will happen within a few hours, which and I always say to my clients, be careful what you wish for, because I worked with one recently around cutting some old ties with a relationship. And I know many times I'll work on something with my clients, we do the Ho'oponopono, and often within minutes, often what happens is, particularly if I'm doing breakthrough sessions, so they'll be saying, oh, put their phone on at the end to check the date for the next session, they'll go, oh my God, there's a message from so-and-so, and this will be the message from the person that they've fallen out. Sometimes the message is, I've been thinking about you, about how things ended, want to apologize, be really great to get together and have a chat. Or it's the person who's, let's say, gone AWOL, disappeared, suddenly they pop out the woodwork and they're very attentive, very chatty and all that kind of stuff, they get back in touch. And often that happens within minutes. Now, when I used to see clients at home, I would almost be like standing by the door or by the phone, go, here we go. Phone would ring, I'd pick it up. Now, if the phone did ring after a client just left, first thing I'd be doing while I'm on the phone is I'm putting my hand down the side of the leopard print sofa to make sure they haven't dropped their keys, dropped their phone, whatever, so I can just find it, hand it to them when they're ringing the doorbell. But I'd say 9 times out of 10, the reason they were phoning is they're going, I'm just driving, I've just put my phone on, you're not going to believe it. And then they're going to relay some message. Or I had one of my clients who had had a falling out with family members and a very difficult relationship with her father. And within, you know, that night, we did the session, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours before, family members, siblings got in touch and they had a really wonderful conversation, and she had a really great conversation with her dad. And I had not done anything to her siblings. I think there were four of them in total. Hadn't done anything to her dad, but energetically, when you change the energy that you carry around something, you know, everything changes. So it's kind of really, really really interesting. So for those of you who are joining me on Saturday, we're going to do a little bit of an experiment where we're going to be working with the symbols. So many of you have already emailed me with what it is you kind of, you know, want to focus on. Let me see what we got here. So for those of you who are doing the remote piece, so you can't make the workshop, but you're just going to be joining us remotely. If you haven't replied yet, I want to know, what do you most require? Do you want to energize things and shake things up? Like, let's say you've got stuck energy, you realize that things are not in flow, then that will be a particular kind of set of symbols. Do you want to calm things down? It might be that things are too frenetic. It might be that there's too much going on. So that'll be another kind of modality. It might be that you want more openness, more clarity, and you want more connection in terms of your intuition. And in Huna terms, we're also going to be doing some work with the higher self. So that might be the thing that you require. Or it might be you want to fire things up and you want more motivation, you want more energy, you want more get up and go. So whatever it is that you require, let me know by email, because I've got some pre-preparation work to do with that. And then once I've done that, I will then be able to kind of get it prepped. Now, if you're going to be there in the room, we're doing it in the room. For those of you who are joining us remotely, I'll send you an email tomorrow explaining how it's all going to work and that sort of thing. But I've already told that it started with the suicidal friend. She had no idea what I was doing in her drunken stupor. It still worked with her. Oftentimes with my clients, I'll just be at home, I'll just be thinking about them. And if I'm in an ongoing relationship with them, let's say, so I know we've got sessions coming up, if they enter my head more than 3 or 4 times, I'm like, man. And I'll just send them some Huna energy. And sometimes I have a sense of what that's going to be about, so I'll choose the symbols that are right for that. Other times you work with the Huna guides and you just send them over to do your bidding, to work it out. And I remember there was a client who used to drive here, so she drove a Porsche, very distinctive sound to that engine. So I could always hear when she was arriving. So I would get up and I'd get the parking vouchers ready. And I remember one day she walked up, I opened the door, she didn't even say hello. She went, "What did you do last Tuesday?" I went, "Huh?" She went, "Did you do some Huna? Did you do?" And I was like, and I checked my diary, and sure enough, that had been the day I was at home. And I just couldn't get her out of my head. So I sent some Huna energy over. She didn't know anything about what I was doing. And back in those days, that's where I was working like 21 days a week, 12, 15, 20 hours a day. So you never knew, I didn't even know where I was or what I was doing. So she had no idea of what I was doing, but she felt it. And so we had this conversation. She turns up a couple of weeks later. I opened the door again. She didn't even say hello. She went, "You didn't do any Huna last week, did you?" And I went, "No, I didn't." That's how crazy it is. And she lives, oh my God, I don't know, it would be 2.5 hour drive to get here. So it's not a distance thing. And I've been running a sort of a little series in terms of, you know, things I love about Huna. And I think if I were going to try and put it into words, the thing I would say, and this is things I love about Huna, number 3, transcending time. I think the thing I would say about Huna is it transcends space and time and the way that we think about space and time. Because to be able to send energy over to someone in Australia, and I'm based in the UK, so it's a long way, and to have them feel it and to have it work, and to just be talking to someone on the phone or talking to them on Skype. And a lot of the times when I'm on Skype, I'm not even looking at them. It's camera off. We're just chatting like you and I are chatting now, and it will still work. So it transcends down the phone lines. It transcends through Skype. And for those of you who have maybe joined me for the big clearing call, you will know, if you've been a regular on those calls, and I haven't run them, I had a break this year, so I hadn't run them for 6 months. I ran one yesterday as we reached the kind of, you know, just had the summer solstice mid-year point. I thought it'd be fun. But people will book a reading. So I do the angel tarot reading. Whatever comes up in the reading, I then do some Huna clearing around that. And I've had people listen to those MP3 recording days, weeks, even months later, and go, oh my God, I've just listened to the recording, I felt the energy, and they feel the shifts and they feel the changes even with the recording. And so for those of you who are joining us remotely, the way it's going to work is, and thank you also for those who sent me photographs, it's really fantastic. And you don't need to. When I first started doing this, I used to get a bit of pen and paper, and I would actually draw like a stick man representation of my client. I'd write their name on it and I'd use that as my focus for the Huna. And then I realized, no, you don't need to do that. Just hold them in your mind and think about them. Just send the energy. And there are times don't even go to that much. You know, I'm just like, oh yeah, boom, 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 so and so. So I haven't spent time trying to visualize them and see them in my mind. And yeah, it's just like, just do the thing. However, I thought what would be really nice for those of you who are joining us energetically rather than being in the room, I asked if people are, and I said it's 100% optional, not necessary. I just thought it'd be nice if they wanted to send a photograph. And so far, majority of people have sent a photo. And so it's just been really lovely to see the photos, because what I'm going to do, by the way, I'm the only one who's going to see your photograph. I'm not going to be showing it to anyone else. I'm going to have them in a folder. But what I'm doing when I'm doing the energy transmissions with the group, I'm also going to be including you guys in it. So the way I'm going to be doing it, just so you kind of know, actually I might send this to you, to send this video to those of you who have signed up, because I know not all of you are connected on Facebook. Is I'm going, the way I do my angel tarot card readings, actually, the way I do Tarot Tuesday is I think about the name of the person that I'm reading for, I hold them energetically in my mind, and then I pull a card. And you guys, you know, we do Tarot Tuesday every single month in the membership group. It's one of the kind of free bonus sessions that I run. And if you haven't yet read the comments for this one, people are now just starting to watch the video, because I do it as a Facebook Live video. Some people are on it live, a lot of people catch the recording. People are like, oh my God, that was just totally spot on for me. And sometimes it's as weird as, maybe you ought to think about having more organic fruit. The person will come and watch the recording and go, I just bought some organic fruit this morning because I just felt compelled to. It's that crazy. And so it's that thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the energy of the person that I'm reading for in mind. I'm going to also look at your photograph, because I thought it might be nice to just have the energetic vibe and presence of you in the room with us. And every time we do an energy transmission or a clearing with people in the room, you're also going to be included in that. Oh, hi Sita, good afternoon to you too. So you're going to be included in the energy transmissions in that way. And I think with regards to, this is the way that if I had to create a visual for it, this is kind of a visual for it, because where a lot of the times if I'm doing telephone sessions, if I'm doing Skype sessions, we're using the power of technology to do this. But there's also that, because one of the things that the Hawaiians believe is about the Arca connection and the energetic connection that radiates between us as human beings, which is the premise of Ho'oponopono. And so it's going to be about connecting in with the Arca connection. Of course, in signing up for the remote sessions, you've given your permission. You've also gotten back to me with, you know, what is your focus? What is it you want to work on? What is it you want to clear? And so when I send the exercises over to you tomorrow, just to give you a heads up, I'm going to be asking you to think about what is it you'd most like to clear? Where are you now on a scale of 1 to 10? So you get a bit of a rating. And then over the coming days and weeks, I'm going to be asking you just to kind of check in with that. And a lot of people, and particularly if they're sensitive to energy, in terms of they have a good sense of how they're feeling and where they're at, they will know immediately when something's changed. Because I had a client I did probably about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, and they were, how can I describe it? They had a heavy heart and they were tearful. In terms of even just talking about the situation, they would start crying. By the end of the session, I don't know, 2 hours later or whatever it was, their heart was light and they were feeling peaceful and joyful. So sometimes it's as profound as that, and other times it is that ripple effect, that sort of, you know, you notice a bit here and a bit here, and then suddenly you just look around and go, man, that thing that used to really bother me before, not even bothered about it now. I can barely remember what it is. And then that means you can have a conversation with someone, and you'll say, you know, you'll talk about an old issue, you know, you're doing a bit of a test with them, and they look at you like you're an alien, and they go, and they would almost say to you, and they would almost claim it's not a problem. And that's where you have to smile to yourself and go, my work is done. And so and you'll get the exercises tomorrow. The reason I'm going to send it tomorrow rather than Saturday, I have no idea what your plans are for Saturday, so you might be out and about. So I just want to give you a little bit of a head start, but there's nothing you need to do per se. One of the things I love about Huna, there are many, as you'll see from the Things I Love About Huna series, but one of the things I really love, particularly when it comes to higher self therapy, is how little angst, how little struggle, how little you have to do. Because a lot of the times my clients are just listening to an MP3. That's it. And they go to sleep with a problem, wake up the next day, it's gone. It's like, okay. So, you know, that's one of the things I really love about it. Oh, thank you, Sita. Sita says, I love the images, Marilyn. Cool, thank you. Playing with a new bit of kit and technology, but I think it's a really nice way to bring a subject to life. And of course, I'm sure it's lovely to look at something other than myself the whole time. So I love that you're loving the images. Thank you for the feedback. So yeah, that's it. So if you want to join us on Saturday, it's www.hunaintro, H-U-N-A is how you spell Huna, hunaintro.eventbrite.com. It's also the place to go if you want to book one of the remote sessions if you can't make it. And also what I've set up, because I don't know, I ran this one probably about 4 years ago. I don't know when I'm going to run another one. Some of you will know me if you follow me a while. You know, sometimes I run something once or twice and I never run it again because it's like, oh, it's out of my system now, I'm done. But what I also have done is just set up a page where if you want to register your interest, if you can't make this one, you'd like to be with us in person, then you can fill that in as well. I think I've got probably, 12 to 15 names on that list at the moment. And then what I'll do is very similar to this, is I'll go back to the group of people who are interested. So the group of people who are coming chose the date for this workshop. I just gave them a list of dates and said, look, this is when I'm free in July and August. Pick a date that you want to do. And then I pick the date that everyone could do, and then we mark it around that. So apologies if you can't make it, but hey, should have been in the survey. And I, did that with my e-newsletter list. And so I'll do a similar thing with this as well, in terms of get back to you all with some potential dates, probably next year. And we'll go from there. And what I will also do, actually, oh, there we go. What I'll also do is I will drop into the thread, let's see, as if by magic. Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll drop into the thread the link if you wanted to join us for the workshop, if you wanted to book a remote session. And I will also, Huna pre-workshop registration, EOI. EOI means expression of interest. I will drop that into the thread as well. So if you're watching this video, have a look at the conversation thread. What I'll also do is I'll put it in the description of the video later as well. If you wanted to join us either in person or book a remote session and join us remotely and take part in the remote experiments, use the Eventbrite page. And if you just want to register your interest for possibly joining us next time round, then I've just put the link in as well. But yeah, the energy experiment is going to be interesting. I'm going to do something I've never done before with the symbols, and I'm just going to be getting your feedback in terms of the impact of that, the feeling of that, the context of it, and how it impacts and affects you. So it's going to be interesting, and you guys will know if you follow me long enough. I have these little things where I go, oh, I wonder what would happen if I did XYZ, and this is one of those times. And so it's going to be fun. So yeah, if you're joining me in person, fabulous. If you're joining me remotely, that's great. If you are joining remotely, please hurry up, because I've only got a little bit of time tomorrow in which to do the pre-prep. And so I might not be able to include you in everything if you're one of the very last minute people. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. So thank you so much for watching this video. And if you know anyone who would benefit from a good bit of energetic clearing, please feel free to share this video with them. And if you're joining me, then keep an eye on your email inbox tomorrow, early afternoon, and I'll be sending over all of the instructions about, what you need to do for those of you who are not in the room but are going to be doing the processes remotely. And you don't need to do anything. You just need to be the recipient of the energy. So you can completely carry on with whatever you had planned for the day. Don't worry about that. And yeah, all will be revealed. Cool. Well, wishing you all a fabulous day, week, month and year and life ahead. And if you're joining us for a bit of Huna magic, then I look forward to working with you. So catch you all later. Bye bye.